Abolish the Electoral College, Project 2029. A true democracy does not hand power to the few at the expense of the many. Yet the Electoral College does just that, overriding the will of the people, silencing millions, and allowing presidents to take office without winning the most votes. This is not representation, it is distortion. The solution is clear: abolish the Electoral College. Every vote should carry equal weight, whether cast in Wyoming or California. No system that disregards the majority can claim to be just. This is not radical, it is fairness. One person, one vote is the foundation of democracy. The presidency should be decided by the people, not by an outdated mechanism designed to placate slave states. Every other modern democracy elects its leader by popular vote. Why shouldn't we? Action must follow conviction. Push for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Support a constitutional amendment to ensure every ballot matters. Elect leaders who will fight for true democracy. America should not be governed by geography, but by its people. Abolish the Electoral College, because the presidency should belong to the nation, not a handful of swing states. Key stats. 1. Popular vote versus electoral outcome discrepancies. In the 2000 election, George W. Bush won the presidency with 271 electoral votes despite losing the popular vote by over 500,000 votes. Similarly, in 2016, Donald Trump secured 304 electoral votes, while Hillary Clinton received nearly 2.9 million more popular votes, highlighting a stark disconnect between the people's vote and the final outcome. 2. Voter weight inequality. The value of an electoral vote varies dramatically by state. For instance, in Wyoming, one electoral vote represents roughly 194,000 citizens, whereas in California, it represents nearly 700,000 citizens. This means a vote in Wyoming can count up to 3.6 times more than a vote in California, undermining the principle of equal representation. 3. Safe state effect. Research indicates that in recent elections, more than 60% of states have been safe states where the same party won 100% of the electoral votes. This leaves millions of voters in non-competitive states effectively voiceless in shaping national outcomes. 4. Historical anomalies in representation. The Electoral College was originally designed as a compromise to balance interests between slave and free states, yet today it often contradicts democratic norms. Studies show that if every vote were equal, the outcomes of recent elections could have been dramatically different, potentially altering the course of history. 5. Disproportionate influence of swing states. A small number of battleground states hold disproportionate power in deciding presidential elections. For example, in the 2016 election, just a handful of swing states accounted for nearly 80% of the total electoral votes, meaning that the political interests of these regions overshadow the will of the majority of Americans. Leading voices. 1. Fair vote. Fair vote is one of the leading advocates for electoral reform. It promotes a range of measures, including alternative voting systems and a National Popular Vote Interstate Compact that would effectively replace the Electoral College with a system reflecting the national popular vote. 2. National popular voting. Focused on bringing about a constitutional change through the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, NPVC works to ensure that the U.S. president is elected by a direct popular vote, thereby sidestepping the Electoral College. 3. Common Cause. A watchdog group dedicated to making government more accountable and responsive. Common Cause campaigns for reforms that include abolishing or reforming the Electoral College in favor of a system that more accurately represents the will of voters. 4. Represent Us. Represent Us is a grassroots coalition focused on breaking the grip of money and entrenched interests in American politics. Its platform for clean elections and democratic reform often includes calls for abolishing systems like the Electoral College that could distort voter influence. 5. Demos. Demos is a think tank that studies and advocates for democratic reforms and economic justice. Its research on political participation and voting systems includes critiques of the Electoral College and proposals for a more direct democracy. 10 steps. 1. Conduct a comprehensive electoral audit. Leverage data from the Brennan Center for Justice, the U.S. Census Bureau, and academic research to document discrepancies between the popular vote and electoral outcomes. For instance, in the 2000 and 2016 elections, candidates won the presidency despite losing the national popular vote by margins of over 500,000 and nearly 3 million votes, respectively. This audit will map regional disparities and quantify the distortion, establishing a robust, data-driven baseline for reform. Build a multi-stakeholder coalition for electoral reform. Assemble a coalition of organizations such as the League of Women Voters, Common Cause, and the Campaign Legal Center, alongside civic educators, political reform advocates, and grassroots groups. Convene an inaugural summit with representatives from at least 50 organizations across the country to pool expertise, share resources, and unify calls for a system that guarantees one person, one vote. 3. Develop a detailed legislative and constitutional agenda. Craft a comprehensive policy blueprint that calls for the abolition of the Electoral College. Proposals should include joining or expanding the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact and drafting a constitutional amendment declaring that the presidency be decided solely by the national popular vote. Set clear benchmarks, such as obtaining participation from states representing 270 electoral votes within 3 years, to guide lawmakers with precise, evidence-backed targets. Launch a data-driven public awareness campaign. Utilize compelling statistics and personal narratives to reshape public understanding of democratic fairness. For example, studies show that over 80% of Americans believe every vote should carry equal weight. Deploy a multi-platform media strategy using social media, interactive webinars, and town hall meetings, with goals such as reaching 2 million individuals and increasing public support for abolishing the Electoral College by at least 25% over the next year. 5. Implement targeted lobbying and policy advocacy. Organize strategic meetings, policy briefings, and public hearings with key legislators, especially those on the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees. Present the legislative agenda alongside hard data, such as the economic and social costs of electoral distortions and personal testimonies from voters in swing states. Aim to secure commitments from at least 30 influential policymakers to sponsor electoral reform initiatives. 6. Mobilize grassroots and community action. Coordinate with local civic organizations to organize rallies, petition drives, and digital campaigns demanding equal representation in the presidential election. Distribute comprehensive advocacy toolkits, including sample letters, social media graphics, and guidelines for contacting elected officials to empower communities. Set measurable targets, such as increasing grassroots events by 40% and collecting over 500,000 petition signatures nationwide within 18 months. Establish a legal defense and rapid response team. Form a dedicated legal unit drawing on expertise from organizations like the ACLU and public interest law firms to challenge any legal obstacles to reform and defend new measures in court. This team should be prepared to initiate legal action within 48 hours of encountering challenges, with historical precedents demonstrating that swift legal intervention can secure landmark rulings that reinforce the principle of one person, one vote. 8. Implement robust monitoring and accountability mechanisms. Create an independent oversight board comprised of former legislators, constitutional scholars, and representatives from transparency watchdog groups. Develop a publicly accessible dashboard, updated quarterly, with key performance indicators such as progress in state participation in the NPVC, advancements in legislative milestones, and public opinion trends. This transparency, modeled on best practices from governmental accountability initiatives, will allow for continuous evaluation and timely adjustments. 9. Engage in strategic electoral politics. Identify and support political candidates with a proven commitment to democratic reform. Organize targeted voter registration drives and issue-focused campaigns in key swing districts, leveraging data from organizations like Circle to focus outreach efforts on communities most affected by the current system. Aim to mobilize tens of thousands of new, reform-minded voters before the next election cycle, thereby reshaping the political landscape toward true representation. 10. Institutionalize electoral reform for long-term impact. Partner with universities, think tanks, and civic organizations to develop standardized training programs and policy manuals that embed electoral reform into federal and state governance. Establish permanent commissions, such as a National Commission on Democratic Integrity, to review and update electoral policies every 2 years. Commission longitudinal studies to assess the long-term impacts on voter engagement, political equality, and democratic governance, ensuring that reform efforts evolve alongside societal needs.